Hey everybody, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I do have a sponsor for today's episode. It is Nightwolf, born into the outcast breed of werewolves known as the Monakai. 18-year-old Rodney Marcelli is reluctantly pulled into an ancient war between good and evil during a modern time where the line has blurred. With the help of Snowpaw, the pure-blooded Monakai, and a supernatural evil slayer, Night Hunter, Rod must learn to master his newly found the Panther 3 and mysterious kinetic energy power that only he possesses. Rod must fight the Dark Covenant in order to avenge his friends and family and to save the girl he loves from the master vampire, Lord Malice. Rodney Marcelli is Nightwolf, and Nightwolf is now available on Kickstarter through May 11th from the creator team of Rob Motari, Mog Park, Carlos Herrera, and Gat Melvin. And join the Wolf Pack by backing the Kickstarter today at lonewolfcomics.com/Nightwolf. But enough about that, because I have with me for I think the sixth time now, Luke Stone. I think it's been six. I could be wrong, but I think it's six.
Yeah, I think it might be. Yeah, we hang out a lot.
Yeah. When our schedules mix and mingling, you always got something going on, and obviously you have a lot of stuff going on. But I do want to talk about Fund My Comic, because that's your new baby, I think is a nice way how to say it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I guess, an alternative to Kickstarter, sort of an alternative to Crowdfunder, and the other things, Indiegogo. And I guess there's a lot of stuff going on with that. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Mike Barron, and he's having some issues, and a bunch of other people having issues on Indiegogo. And so, but I don't want to dive too much into all that stuff right off the top, because I do want to hear from you. What is Fund My Comic, and what is the basic premise for those who are hearing about it for the first time? I think a lot of people know it, but for those who don't.
Oh, well, Fund My Comic, it's kind of a centralized digital comic book store for crowdfunding and storefronts for people that do comics, games, pop culture stuff, all the good stuff, the stuff we like, kind of geek culture. But it does primarily focus around indie comics or indie creators. There's a lot of different categories on the website for a lot of different things, but it was something that I decided I wanted to try to build back in January of 2022. I had recently gotten out of the hospital mid-January from a 5-month stint, with my, we've talked about that in the past. We've been on here plenty of times. So when I got out, one of the things I noticed that people were kind of going after more conservative voices and things like that. As a pastor, well, former pastor now, I realized that there was, kind of people that had, more conservative and religious views were starting to get silenced. And I kind of wanted to create myself a life raft in case that happened to me, And so in the process, I started looking around at different things in order to do that. WordPress sites with plugins for crowdfunding and Shopify plugins and all those kind of things. And I ultimately decided that I didn't kind of like any of those because I was really happy with my website as it was. I didn't want to start a new website to do that. I wanted to just plug it right into LukeStoneStudios.com and go. And so in the process, I wound up finding this white label company that had this infrastructure that I could use. I basically leased it, really is kind of the best way to say it. I leased this code and kind of went from there. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that it had the capacity to host a lot more than just a few people. Like I could have like an infinite number of people if I decided to host it in such a way. And as we got closer to using this site, I tested it. It worked out well. Did a campaign with it, and then all of the shadow banning started happening. It kind of came out of nowhere.
Let's talk about that as well, but continue.
Yeah. So when all of that started happening, I had a lot of people say, Luke, they kind of, some people saw the back end. They saw what the site was capable of. And they said, you ought to ramp this thing up and host everybody. And I said, man, there's a lot of work that has to go into the terms of service and all that baloney. And getting lawyers and bankers involved and, figuring out the infrastructure for payment. Because at the time I was just using PayPal, and I had Stripe as a backup. But reluctantly, I took everyone's I listened to everyone's request, and we decided to step things up and to create an alternative for people that were getting shadow banned. Now, I wasn't intending to, just be the guy that. I didn't want this to be a replacement necessarily, like a clone. I did want it to be a replacement, but not a clone of Indiegogo or Kickstarter. I wanted to take kind of the best parts of both and then add some things that I wanted it to do, so that I could be a little more independent with how I decided to crowdfund or run a store through it. And we just started working with the code developers to kind of take whatever they had, their kind of base code, and start to adapt it to our needs, and add new functionality that it didn't currently have. And it started to take shape. And about 2 months ago, a little over 2 months ago, we launched fundmycomic.com officially. And we've got about 31 campaigns running live on there right now. We have raised over $10,000 for campaigns already in 2 months. And we have some pretty well-known names on their way over. So yeah, we're pretty excited about what's going on with Fund My Comic. But yeah, it is a crowdfunding and storefront, digital storefront for people that have comics and games, man. That's and stuff. So that's what we're doing.
So let's actually talk a little bit about this, because obviously I'm a big proponent, and anybody who knows me, I've been a free speech advocate for a very long time. I've had Dennis Kitchen on, Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. I think that, I've defended a lot of different people that people disagree with me on, and I've disagreed with on. I've defended and have been a big proponent of PETA in DC when they wanted to run an ad in the Metro. And I'm not a huge, PETA fan per se, but I thought it was ridiculous that they weren't allowed to do that. And it was, Yiannopoulos was on that case.
Sorry.
Those who don't know. And so it's a very interesting thing. And I find it very complicated that people are getting, I guess, censored.
Oh, I hate censorship.
And obviously I've experienced that with Mike Barron's, Private American book. And I was pissed off about it.
Oh, yeah.
And so what is that like? Because you kind of launched right when this was all happening. And I think it was happening a little bit before, but then all of this started happening. And this isn't exactly, I wouldn't say that you were intending to be a solution or an alternative, but you become that. And what is that like?
Yeah, well, it's weird, man. There are people on the site that are funding right now. They couldn't fund anywhere else. They really don't have another home. They could go back to a company that's shadow banning them or someone that's outright banning them. And some of these people are part of a comics community that I believe is widely misunderstood. But
I mean, we could say it.
Yeah, the CG folks over there. And those people, like, they tried to go to crowdfunder, and they just said they're not welcome there. So what do you do, right? I mean, you go back to Indiegogo. Some of them have decided to do that. Some of them says that's not a good enough solution for me. I really can't. That can't be the answer for me. Some of them are like, Fund My Comic is my place. And so that's kind of, I think that's kind of where we're at. There's a book up there called Ma'am I Am. It's, we have 3 pillars: freedom of expression, fierce independence, and trust. And what we're learning is that a lot of people, kind of when I started to do on the site for myself, my intention was that I just wanted to make comics and be left the hell alone. And you know what? There's a lot of people that want to just make comics and be left the hell alone. And so, oddly enough, and so using these three pillars, you're free to say, you're free to use your freedom of your First Amendment right. We're not going to censor you. If someone doesn't like it after it's past our guidelines, well, that's fine. Just don't back it. Like, you know, move on. Find something else that you do like.
So
And
let's actually talk about that. So I'm a huge proponent of capitalism. And my solution in life is that if you don't like my show, and there's plenty of people who don't like my show, you don't have to watch it. You don't have to tune in. You don't have to like it. You don't have to subscribe to me on YouTube. And you can go find something that you will like. And if you don't like my eBay store and what I sell on my eBay store, I sell a lot of bad girl art. That's fine. I understand that some people get offended by it. And if you don't like it, that's great. You can go and you can move on to something else. I'm not, not to sound mean and it might get me in trouble, but I'm not holding a gun to anybody's head. And I think that's one of the biggest problems right now in comics is that I think everybody has sort of a righteous mentality and they want to be right and, they want to put somebody down instead of going out and saying, I'm just going to move all along and away from this and I'm going to produce a better book than you and I'm going to beat you in the free market. And I think that's one of the biggest problems I think is happening in comics. And I think also people also aren't telling fun stories either, which is
yeah,
creating
yeah,
problems.
people aren't telling fun stories, and people want to make it more about ideology than they want to make it about an entertaining comic or a book, and it's starting to wear on people, and I think that the market is answering. I think they're responding, quite clearly, to comic book creators out there, and publishers out there. They're like, look, it's no, like I'm not happy with the content. I'm not happy with the stories. They're boring. They're answering. They're answering with their dollars, and I think people do get upset by that. And I think the more that the fans answer with their dollars, kind of the more militant people get about drawing these ideological lines. And honestly, I don't care much about all of those things. I really care about providing for my family. That's a big one for me. I like that a lot. And then the other one that I care about is being able to do what I love for a living. And so I think we're running into a lot of people that are like that. And so with Fund My Comic, I don't care if you like me or if you hate me. You hate Luke Stone's guts. You could be an outright critic of what I do. I don't care. Feel free to utilize the site. The site does have a 3% platform fee, which is way less than what you're paying anywhere else. If you're like, oh well, I just want to take advantage of the boob market over on Kickstarter, yeah, that's great. But guess what? We kind of got one too. So, don't feel like you have to limit yourself on the fans of boobs buying your book. So we that's just kind of
Let's actually
what
talk
we're
about that too. So I'm curious because obviously you're a new platform, and I'm an investor and I just invested in a relatively new, proven REIT that's still proving itself. And so the data on what I
yeah.
just invested, I'm not going to name the name of it, but it's similar, and I'm just drawing it off the top of my head. Um, but one of the things on Kickstarter and people have been speaking about is Kickstarter does favor variants a lot. It favors, bad girl art variants in certain ways, sexy girl art. And obviously, you're a brand new platform where I think you said you had 31 projects that have been up there. And so you might not
Yeah.
have data, but do you feel that, if that people are coming to, fund my comic for variants, or is it more story, or is it the idea that it's saying, hey, we know a bunch of these creators and we're also just looking for something different versus saying,
Well,
what's been the same on Kickstarter, or is it that the data just isn't there yet? Because
oh
that
no, we've got 2 months to develop data. or to gather data, and we're finding that we're definitely getting traffic. In fact, this month our traffic was up 64% from the first month, which is huge. Which is huge. Yesterday was a big day for us as well, as far in terms of traffic, and so we are able to have a pretty good idea about what is enticing people there, and it is story. It really is. That is what most people are getting involved with when they're there. It's we got there's people that are interested in some of the other stuff. We do have some some bad girl art stuff up there, but I think that people are still kind of getting their bearings there. I'm not gonna discount Kickstarter. It definitely does. If you've got something that's not safe for work, yeah, it's probably gonna do really well over there. But
So
that's
let's
just
actually talk about that. And sorry to cut you off, but
all right.
one of the things that I'm getting sick of, and look, I mean, I run an eBay business that's based on variance, exclusivity. So I'm slightly arguing against myself. But when I'm looking for story, what I find on Kickstarter, and this might put me at odds with people, is that there's a lot of really good cover art on Kickstarter, and it's some of the best
Great.
art in the world. But
Yeah.
the story is subpar. And, I don't know how you feel about that, where the cover of the book is immaculate and it's beautiful. It's the best thing ever. And then you open up the book and it's not the same. And then you're like, I just spent $40 for, essentially a beautiful cover and that's it. And so, and also what I find with story too is there's a lot of screenwriters or potentially failed screenwriters now writing comics. And I think that's also where this is going, where they couldn't make it as a screenwriter. And so now they're writing comics. And I've interviewed a bunch of them. So, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but you could tell when a comic is written like a screenplay. I mean,
You certainly can.
it's not that hard,
Uh,
is my point. But I'm curious your thoughts on that
well,
because,
kind of speaking of that, I'm actually right now as we talk, working on a um, I'm working on a book that is written by a screenwriter, but he's hired me to do the art and kind of edit it for comics to make it a great graphic novel, right? Because he's interested in the medium of graphic novels and comics. He's a fan, and I think it's possible for these guys that are screenwriters to do good work, in comics, especially if they are a fan. But a lot of these guys are coming in and they're making their choice to do this not because they're a fan, but because they think it's an easy way to storyboard their movie, and that can become problematic for the story aspect of a lot of these books that we're seeing on these platforms, and because of that I guess the desire, or the very easy opportunity to get Netflix deals and things like that from comic books or graphic novels, it is encouraging a lot of people to try to get their next payday, their next paycheck from Kickstarter right now. Not only just to make the book, but potentially down the road to get the streaming deal. You know,
so speaking about that, and this is just my take on it, is that I think a lot of people are writing comics right now as a pitch. Because let's be
yeah,
realistic when I say this, is that, and I'll use Avatar. I'm a huge Avatar Last Airbender. to produce a 156-page graphic novel and a hardcover book is way cheaper than producing one episode of that show. No matter which way you cut,
Yes.
by far of a 20-minute animation. And I mean, the graphic novels are done well. There's nothing wrong. The art's great on it. It's a beautiful product. But if that whole thing, from start to finish, writing and artwork and cover work and all that stuff and some bonus materials, maybe it runs 25,000 on the high end. And I think that might even be high to produce the actual artwork. It might be more, might be less, but I'm throwing, I think, a middle of the road number out. And
Yeah.
25,000 is way cheaper than 20 minutes of animation will ever be on the high end.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've looked at doing animation for my own books. And even if I take my own artwork and have my artwork animated, it's still for a 10-minute video. It's just to do that. I think it's something like what is it, like almost like 10 grand, and that's using my artwork. Like they're just animating my artwork. So yeah, it's expensive to do it, and yeah, for some people these are pitches.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I think, and I think just people are just saying, "Look, I just want this," and I don't think they're realizing how hard it is. Because great, it gets optioned by Netflix, but or Hulu or Peacock, wherever else, it got optioned. For it to get developed is a whole different ball game. And even still, once it gets developed, I think that I mean, look at Why the Last Man, and there's been a bunch of other stuff that's only had one season. So great, your project gets optioned. 4 years later, it gets greenlit, it gets screenwritten, and then it gets one season and it bombs. I
Right.
don't know if, I mean, to do The Walking Dead for 19 seasons, I mean, I don't know how many shows have had 19 seasons ever. I mean, there's only like maybe like 20 in the history of all of television that have had more than 19 seasons.
It
Maybe
hasn't been many.
so I just think that and I'm just curious your thing. This is probably where we get controversial. I think this is what's ruining comics to some degree.
Oh no, I absolutely agree. It's part of what's ruining the art form, and people are losing they're losing the point behind what the art form is, and it shows. I do this not because I want an easy buck or because I think it's going to be an easy way to get a Netflix deal. I do this because, darn it, I love comic books. I love comic books, and so it's just something that I kind of have to do because I love them so much. I can't seem to not want to do them. I keep trying, I keep trying to get away, and it just pulls me back in. You know.
It's funny you say that because I feel the same way about selling comic books, where I could sell anything I want, I could do anything, and there's a million ways how I can make money, and I have no doubt that I would make money in a million different ways. But I like being in the collectible space because I like this space, I enjoy it, I like knowing everything about it, and I don't want to make money doing something else. I mean, it's a side hustle. It's not my full time job, so that probably helps a little bit. But even still, like I can't leave because I love this industry a lot. It's the same reason why I started this show almost 10 years ago. Is that I like talking about this stuff, and there's a million things I could talk about. And I think
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel, but I feel like there's less and less people who love this. And I speak to every once in a while to people who are wrestlers, and I can tell when a wrestler loves the industry. When they love every
Oh yeah.
aspect of it, you can smell it and you could see it and the way they talk about it. And I had an interview where the interview was nearly perfect, where there was one little hiccup, and unless you know where it was, you wouldn't be able to spot it. And the guy loves the industry, and it was fantastic. But I don't know how you feel, but I feel there's less and less people who really will die for this industry right now.
Oh yeah. There's more people that'd rather tear it apart I think, than make it, than they want to build it up. And you get so many people that want to fight over it, and they want to argue over it, and they want to make it political. And they've sucked all the fun out of it, in my opinion. And what we're trying to do with Fun My Comic is bring the fun back in. You know, it's trying to enjoy it again. I love, like, as I'm sitting here, I'm drawing a car chase. Like, car chases are cool. And this is, I mean, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of detail in this piece that most people will never even really pay attention to when they flip through the page. But man, if it isn't worth doing, right, then it's not worth doing at all, I think. That's kind
I
of
don't
my
know how you
outlook.
feel. I don't know how you feel about this. There's two things, and I'm curious your opinion on it, and it's somewhat comic related. So one of them is that I just bought a book for $20, and then I flipped it for like 100, and it was a high risk. But the second I did it, I got such a high because when I saw it come up, I'm like, man, I know this book is going to be worth bank, and I knew it. And then when I was right, it was just such a fulfillment high. And then the other thing that to me is a lot of fun because I'm just like, oh man, I'm right in, like, it's the thrill of it. And then the other thing is I'm a huge baseball card collector and I open up packs. And I remember as a kid opening up packs and you open it up and you don't know what you're gonna get. And it's fun because you're going through it and then you get like a really colorful like card, or like sometimes with baseball cards, like they have like, I guess I'm trying to think of like a gimmick maybe where it's like really cool shoes that the Major League Baseball players are wearing and like really cool kicks. And you don't know if you're going to pull one of those cards or you're going to pull like a hollow foil or a parallel. And it's fun because you don't know what you're going to get and it's a thrill. And when you're drawing, is that what it is for you when somebody brings you something like, man, I get to draw a card chase and I haven't done
Maybe it's more like when when, like, you're thinking when you're a kid and you're like, oh, that'd be cool if wouldn't it be cool if that would happen, right? Then you can be that, like, oh, you take their idea and it's like, oh, but wouldn't it be cool if this was in there, or maybe I could throw that in there. And there's just so many things that I get excited about, actually drawing the panels and kind of creating these new worlds that nobody knows anything about, and they're brand new, and they're fresh, and they're unique, and no one's going to get upset if you make a character X, Y, or Z, because no one's seen that character before. you know so that's kind of fun, and so it's interesting, and it's fun just meeting these characters for the first time, and hearing these stories for the first time. I think that's what I like about it, and I love looking through websites and finding really cool stories. And I like not having to worry about how they voted or what group they belong to, or what color or gender they are. Like, let me just enjoy good stories and let it be about that. And
Yeah,
I think that's what it is for me. And I mean, it's a genuine love for the art form of sequential art.
and even to go further into that, and this is how I feel, and I've been very open about this, is that my life is hard. So I am very open about this, where I have a disability, I had a surgery, I'm recovering from it, and obviously you recovered from something pretty significant too, and life is pretty hard. And if you have a very physical disability, you don't. Sometimes people are going through divorces, sometimes people have other things going on, sometimes people have issues with their children that are stressing them out. And I feel comics, media, and other things, they can be political, but a lot of times, I want to read a story where Superman is dealing with Lex Luthor, and I don't want to know their politics. What I want to know is how they're going to deal with the problem at hand because I want to escape my problems that
Yes.
I'm dealing with that particular day, because I'm sure you've had horrible days. I've had horrible days. And, I mean, I'm recovering from my surgery the first week and I'm reading fables. And guess what? I'm taken out of my world for 40 minutes at a time when I'm going through hell. And is I'm in, the world of fables, and it can be a lifesaver because if you're out of hell for 10 minutes and you go back to hell, maybe that 10 minutes is a break on your brain. And I think that's something that a lot of people have forgotten in comics is
Yeah.
that you're meant to entertain me if I buy your book.
Yeah, and I don't really care about people's sexuality either. Like,
Oh, I just
does
want to
it
be
matter?
entertained, guys. That's really all I want. This is about me. When I
It's
pick
about
up a
me.
comic, I just want to be entertained and I want to escape my problems. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's like
I
these people. I want to be seen. I don't want to be. I don't care if I'm seen. Pardon me. I've been fighting the flu, which is not easy to do when you have diminished lung capacity from COVID. But yeah, here we are. But we're still in a chair working. We're interviewing. We're working on a website. We're making comic books. People are, being
I took
entertained.
3 days off from my surgery. And then I used 3 vacation days. So I've been paid every day that I had since my surgery, including while I was on the operating table. And I'm not complaining because I can work from my job at home. It's perfectly fine. And, I'm banging it out and I'm doing something meaningful in my life.
Well, unfortunately, I do work for myself, which I love. It's a fortunate thing. I draw comic books for a living now. Like that's what I literally do all day.
And then now
Besides,
you're running a company too.
yeah, besides running the company. So I mean, that's what I do. And but if I'm not drawing, I'm not getting paid. So I still have to do all those things. And so even if I take a day off, I have to try to catch that up somewhere. And so it's always a challenge to try to figure out exactly when and where I'm going to do that. So, but honestly, I like being in the chair drawing. I really do. I don't, it's not like it's not really work because I love doing it so much.
I think Chester from Lincoln Park said it during a live concert. He said, "If you're not having fun doing this, referring to be up on stage, then you're doing it wrong."
Yeah.
And it's a very, very good statement from him, meaning that if you're up on stage performing in front of a live crowd and a singer, or you're doing whatever you're doing, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're doing it wrong. And I think, if you're doing comic books and you're not having a good time, you're doing it wrong. And then I heard another quote from somebody who used to work in the White House, and he said, "The day I knew when I had to leave was when I walked into the White House, into the West Wing, and I wasn't amazed by being there." And the point he was trying to make is
Mm,
that if you're walking in the West Wing and you're dealing with politics and all this crazy stuff that's going on in the world, and you're not amazed when you're legitimately at the heart of power,
yeah.
it's time for you to go. It's time for you to go where your time is done. And
Yeah. It's time
but
for a break.
yeah, it's the same thing every day. I used to pass the Capitol when I lived in DC, and I was amazed. And even on a bad day, I was still amazed. It was just that it wasn't. Some days you're just not as amazed, but I was still amazed. So I think it's very, very interesting. But I do want to get back to the company because you did mention another pillar that I think is very important, and that is the trust pillar.
Hmm.
And I think that's also a big issue because I don't know how you feel, but I have an issue right now with people in comics on trust of getting my books. I am owed about 40
Yeah.
projects on Kickstarter. Now, 5 of them are late. Now, what I mean is that 35 of them are within their time period, but I still am owed that. That's a lot of projects to be owed. And I understand that, if you're producing an action figure, that's coming in October. I'm Pat Chan, who I know very well, Destiny New York is coming in September. I get that that's within its time frame where he has time to deliver and he's on schedule. But at the same time, I'm still owed that project. And as every month
Yeah.
goes by and we're further and further out, and I use Tom Hutchinson, I'll use Pat Chan as good examples of this, and Mike Barron. I'll throw Mike Barron in there where I'm going to get Private American. I will get private American. I have no doubt about that. Um, but still, when you have 35 projects you're owed, it's a lot. So,
It is. It really is. And there's always delays. I don't want to. I don't want to say there's not, because there are
so
certainly things that come up that
let me
will
cut
cause
you off
a
one
delay
second.
pretty easily.
I'm just curious, and I'll let you finish. What do you mean in which that a delay for me is not 2 months or 3 months? A delay for me, or a delay is obviously 2 months or 3 months. But if you're two
Yeah,
or three
yeah.
months late, that's not when I get upset. When I get
All right.
upset is when
Okay.
your 6 months are over. Where to me, that is now you're late. If you're That's like being 10 minutes late to something if you're at something, right? So for me, and I'm curious where you feel on that as well, where if you're 2 months late, I get it. Printing kind of sucks. But if you're a year late or you're two
Yeah.
years late, now we're in a different ballgame. Or you're 6 months late, we're in a different ballgame. But sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah. Oh no, that's fine. Yeah. I'm happy to clarify. Yeah, for me, late is anything past. I like to be on time personally. That's me. But I've had a couple of projects where kind of personal things that have slowed me down and that pulled me away from doing that physical fulfillment. Kind of got in the way. Like we had a problem with some sketch cards. We had an artist that was going to be able to do those, and then he had something going on in his life and he couldn't do it, and so we had to have somebody else do the sketch cards, and then it wound up being, well, Luke's going to go do the sketch cards, So it was one of those things where you run into issues that just kind of come along. And so, most people are good about communicating those issues. For me, it's when they don't communicate what is going on. That's when it becomes an issue for me. When they, really get, well past a couple of months, then that really becomes an issue for me. So yeah, I think that's where we're at with that stuff
And the
as
reason
far
why I
as what
ask
late
all
is.
this is that with trust, I mean, I think it's a really big thing. This is one of the things that I love about Zoo personally, is that it's very curated. And I think that is a
Mhm.
very interesting position, where it provides a lot of trust and provides a lot of credibility. Where if they curate you and they analyze you, and it gets into the whole debate of gatekeeping, who shouldn't be allowed to do things. And I'm not interested in gatekeeping.
Oh, I gatekeep. I gatekeep. It's my yard. I'm going to keep the gate. But when I say that, when I say that, it always gets a big, ooh, what?
How
So
dare
it
you,
always gets a big
sir? How
what, right?
dare you?
Yeah. Now we're not censoring people, and we're not keeping people off the platform because they vote differently than I do, or they've got a different opinion than I do. We are curating the website to make sure that everyone is following, that they're playing by the rules. There are certain rules that we need to, like certain public decency guidelines that we need to follow. There are certain, we need to make sure that we're fulfilling. And so you are not, if you have a campaign that's egregiously late, you can't run another campaign on our platform. Like
Let's
we've
actually talk
eliminated
about
that.
that, because that's a biggest pet peeve of mine on Kickstarter. And I think I understand the argument on it, where people say, "Oh well, previews does it," but my argument against that is that's previews, and if you don't deliver, if you're DC, Marvel, or another company, and you're in previews and you don't deliver, I get my money back, and there's safeguards, there's consumer protection involved with that.
Yeah.
I think that I understand that sometimes, people want to run another campaign because they understand that it's a year long project, and, they want to, run a year long project and then a 3 month project. And, but I still think it's problematic because
Well,
all it takes is one little trip over a pebble so that you mess up on A, you run B to pay A, you run C to pay B, and then all of a sudden you're 20 Kickstarters in, and now
well, it
E
can.
doesn't.
Now, what we do is we understand that people will run campaigns like that. Like, okay, this one's going to take a little while, so we want to run this other one here. Well, you can't have more than two unfulfilled campaigns. Like, if you want to run a third campaign, you have to have at least one of the other two fulfilled. You can only have one unfulfilled campaign out before you start a new project. So yeah, so we do that. So we curate. You know, that's it's what we do. Some people may not like that, but that's part of that building trust thing. You know, I mean,
Do
we
you
don't
think
want
it's
to.
necessary though? And this is going to sound really
Do I?
weird about. Do you feel it's necessary? Because I'll be very honest. I feel like sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. Where because there's been so many mishaps and there's been so many bad positions now that have occurred that the rules almost have to get tighter before they can get relaxed again. And it sounds like a weird thing, and it's not a very, I guess, freedom of speech.
I get it. Like, do we have to do that because fans are curating themselves? So like, if people aren't fulfilling, they're not going to back. Maybe. But I think it's good to do it anyway. I think it's good to do it anyway, until the standard has been set effectively. That's what I think.
And then even going further into that too, obviously, if something does happen, so if somebody's outrageously late, you put a stop essentially on their account saying, look, you're a year and a half late, and obviously you're brand new, so this probably hasn't happened yet.
Well,
But
no, legally you can't put a stop on their account. Like that's breaking the law. That's breaking, like their bank account, like their money, that's theirs.
oh, no, I meant from running like another thing. So not you not taking away their money.
Oh,
So
oh no, well, here's the thing. We understand that everything is everything's kind of unique, right? Everything's like all of it's unique. Every person, every situation, and so we're very boutique in that sense. So what we do is we really take into consideration the creator and what's going on with them before we make any kind of
what are
rash or major
I'm
decisions.
assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just going to throw you a crazy circumstance. If they're communicating with their backers saying, hey, look, I just had a death in my family, something's going on, I'm sorting it out, and all of their backers are communicated to, and then they're also saying, hey, look, I'm halfway through, obviously, or this happened and then printing just got complicated, and they're communicating all the way through, and they're given timelines. That's probably going to be a very different circumstance than somebody not answering anything and
Oh yeah,
just
absolutely.
radio silence for 6 months, because I've experienced both of those things on Kickstarter, where a creator obviously lost somebody very close to them, where he lost his wife, and he was behind by about 8 months, and he said, hey, I'm dealing with something very personal, can't go into the details, and the guy needed time to himself, and nobody had a problem with it. And then I've been on the other side where somebody didn't update for a year and said, oh, my artist ran away with the money a year later after it was supposed to be due in May of 2021. They let everybody know in May of 2022 or June of 2022, so 13 months later. So
Yeah, that'd be a problem, wouldn't it? I mean, I think so. I think that'd be a problem. But no, yeah, it's all comes down to communication. That's why I say it's we take it for a case by case basis, and so it might be something that needs to be addressed or dealt with, and or it might not be. It might be fine. And so we play each case by ear as best we can. At least that's right now. That's our policy. That we are that we're working with as an admin team, as owners of the site. Our goal is to help people get funded and have a good relationship and with their fans, and for people to get entertained. And so, we're not trying to make life difficult for people to crowdfund. We're trying to make life easier for them, and we're trying to be advocates too. I mean, here's something that nobody else is going to do. If you're having problems crowdfunding, like fulfilling, we're going to try to help you. We've got people that do that stuff. We're partnering with people to actually do the fulfillment for people. I mean, we're going to do everything in our power to help keep you from struggling too much. I mean,
So
we don't
let
have
me
to do
ask you a
that, but
question.
we want to.
Let me ask you a question about that because, again, I haven't produced a comic yet. I'm right now doing really well on eBay. At some point, I may or may not. I haven't decided yet. I like this industry, so I'm probably not the expert on this, but I don't think there's much education on certain aspects of fulfillment and other things, and even just best practices, and even just how to figure out shipping rates in other countries. And maybe there is, I don't know. But, I don't think there's much education on it. And I haven't seen anything when I've researched, and I'm not saying I'm the expert on. So if there is, feel free to correct me. But I think it's a real issue where everybody talks about creation. Everybody talks about a cool story, what artist you're going to use, what variants, how many variants you should have. But they never really talk about the back end, and they don't even talk about fulfillment relationships and things of that nature. And I think it's a real issue, and that's just my take at
I'll,
it.
I'll, I'll give you that. That's very true. That is very true.
I could be
And
wrong.
yeah,
So
it
if
is an
I am,
issue. No, no,
please,
you're not
please
wrong.
correct me anytime
No, no,
because
you're
I'm
not
not
wrong
the
at
expert.
all. No, you're not wrong at all. That's actually a great point. Yeah, it is true. That's very true that happens. We focus so much on, like, we call a successful campaign one that funds. We don't call a successful campaign one that fulfills. And the truth is, the successful campaign is the one that's fulfilled, not just funded. And so, yeah, it is a real problem that exists out there in the crowdfunding space. And we do that. We try to educate all of the individuals that, pardon me, choose to use Fund My Comic and that are new. We're trying to make them successful, right? And so for us, success includes shipping your books to your backers, finishing that transaction. That is what success looks like. That's the end result is fulfillment. And yeah, so we try our best to kind of go a step above what other people do, and actually be an advocate for the creators to get the books out on time. And so yeah, it is it's a lot different what we're doing than from what the competitors are doing. Now there's people out there, they may not need that, and Fund My Comic is still good for you guys too. You don't have to take advantage of our kind of knowledge and expertise with that. Heck, you might have more knowledge and expertise than we do, and that's okay. But you could easily still use the website for the many tools that it has, regardless of kind of your knowledge. But if you are new to this game, you haven't done it much, then this is probably a better place for you than some of the other platforms, because we're going to do everything in our power to help you be successful in the end, because we don't want you to be one and done. We want you to do more, and I mean, we're not really taking that much money, so it's not really about money for us. It's more about the love of comics and the love of helping new people get started and get out the gate, and then helping people that have been doing this for a while that maybe they, you know, want to save more money. They want to be able to elevate their business and maybe level up, take the next step in the evolution of what they do. It's about, you know, it's about helping those people. It's about making a difference there. So that's really what it is. And I know it sounds kind of corny, cliche that, you know, there would be any kind of benevolence to a business at all, but you know, my primary income is not this website. It's drawing comic books. You know, and I don't want to stop drawing comic books. Like, I want to keep doing that. So I don't really have any intention of not doing that.
So to even go further into this though, because one of the things, this is where we're going to get controversial, and I would love to have whoever runs crowdfunder on, because I would love to have a serious discussion about this, where they banned outright Mike Barron's book, and you know
Yeah.
we're going to get you and me both in trouble. You know, Kickstarter banned it. It was shadow banned on Indiegogo. Now some of the people were shadow banned, some were not, because they said they were shadow banned, and then I, you know, looked up their Kickstarter perfect, their Indiegogo perfectly fine. So it's hemming and
Right.
hawing. It might be partially shadow banned.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody has any idea what it is, but Mike Barron's was fully.
Yeah.
One of
Oh
the
yeah, it was
things,
shadow banned.
I think that thing was blocked. But what I said about that is, I said that it's not a freedom of speech issue in the sense, because freedom of speech is between you and the government. It's a contractual problem, because if they're taking a percentage out of your whatever you bring on your campaign, and they're not fully promoting your campaign, that to me is a contractual issue, and it's a violation of our
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
more
Yeah,
so
it
than
is.
freedom of speech.
But because they have the terms of service that they do, they're covered. They're fine.
But that to me is the strongest argument. And maybe I'm the son of a lawyer, so maybe that's part of the problem with the way I think here on this one.
Maybe.
I said it to Mike openly when he was on my show. I said, I don't think that this is a freedom of speech issue, but it's the principles of freedom of speech are the problem with that,
Yeah.
without a
I mean,
doubt.
and it still is a bit of freedom of speech, but they're a private business, right? And let's be honest, they're a private business. They can do whatever they want, just like Fund My Comic is. If I decide I don't want you on my platform, I don't have to let you on my platform. It's mine. I mean, my board of directors can decide that you being on Fund My Comic is not good for our brand. And we could say no, no more you. Like, we could do that. It's sad, but it's true, because they are a private business. It's just like the people that
It's just like this show.
bake a cake, like this show, right?
I don't.
Like,
If I don't want you, no offense, if I don't want you on my show, I don't have to have you on my show. And there's been
bingo.
plenty of people who I don't want anything to deal with them. And I've had plenty of people say, "I'll give you $20 to go on your show," and I'm like, I still don't want you on my show.
I
It's
still don't want
very.
you.
I mean, there's been plenty of advertisers where I didn't want their money because I didn't like their business, and I walked away from my.
Wasn't worth it.
I walked away
Wasn't
from
worth it to
talking
you to
about.
have them on, right?
It wasn't worth it to read a live read for $500 for what they wanted, because it wasn't a good company and would have hurt my brand. It would have
Right.
caused me more harm than good in the long run. And I'm not going to mention who it is, but it's not that hard to figure out who I'm talking about. It's not that hard. There is one, and everybody knows who it is. But not the point. Um, so yeah, they're a private business, but I don't think it's good. And with crowdfunder, I think it's crazy that they don't want anybody from Comicsgate. I think that's wild. I think it is a
Yeah.
very bad
They had an
business.
opportunity to make a lot of money. Because I know they also have they have a feature where you can set up your campaigns to where there's no platform fee and it's all based on donations, and you can make a whole lot more by offering some benevolence than you can by making statements like "we don't want you here," and it is baffling to me that they took that stance. especially when a guy like Mike Barron comes along, who is doing big numbers. You know, if Mike Barron comes to fund my comic, Mike Barron's going to get fair treatment just like everybody else. You know, he's going to be treated just like everybody else with freedom and respect. You know,
I mean,
and
I'm assuming you don't have a problem with a kid's comic if it comes to Fund My Comic. You wouldn't have an issue with that if it's about,
nope,
a princess having a lovely day and having a tea party with her dad. And
no,
that's
no
the
problem
rest
with
of
that
the
at
comic.
all.
You probably want that on it because guess what? It's going to bring a whole bunch of people that probably wouldn't normally come. And they might stick around, right?
Right? Yeah. I want them all on there. I want every kind of comic from every kind of creator on there because I like to have the variety. Like, who doesn't like variety? You know? So, yeah, I like them all. I want them all on there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Princess stories and all that. I don't, it's all great. Let's have one of all, one of everything. Let's do one of everything.
I agree. I agree. In which that it's very important. And then obviously it's the 3% platform fee, but you know, I don't really know if that's a big game changer for many people at the moment, or if they really think of that as the first thing. Maybe they think of it maybe on the back end a little bit, but my speeding
Maybe,
what did you say?
maybe. If we do the math, 2% for every for every dollar's 20 cents. 2 cents, right?
2 cents. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
for every $10, it's 20 cents. For every $100, it's $2. For every, yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you start doing campaigns that are, $20,000, $30,000, saving an additional $400-500, that's how many pages of art is that? That's a really nice cover. Think about like what that actually brings.
I mean, I could break it down even crazier for people. I mean, what is it on, Kickstarter? What is it, like 10%?
Yeah, it's even higher on that. Yeah.
So on eBay charges 13% for those who don't know. So I sell almost exclusively on eBay because I like eBay's protections. And there's been incidents where eBay has saved me legitly thousands of dollars. So I am on eBay for a reason because their protections for their sellers is really good. And they cover their sellers and protect them really well. So I'm happy to pay my 13%. I've also built up a nice business there and the fees were raised. But when you're selling 30 grand and you have to pay 13%, that's a large number.
That's a large number. Yeah.
So just to give an idea here of what that looks like, and it definitely, I'm still very doing good on it. And my profit margins and my margins are great, but if it was 3%, my margins would be even better, or I could probably sell a book for less. And that's the
Yeah.
other thing too, is that if I guess your fees are lower, you can maybe sell your book for $2 cheaper, or $3 or $5 cheaper.
That's the hope. That's the hope that people will be able to sell them cheaper and save, or not have to have their funding goals as high. Because they don't need them as high when you're saving more money. So yeah, that's kind of my hope anyway.
Or at least the other side is that they could keep everything the same and now they have more money in the coffer to keep going,
Hmm.
which means that, they can go and do, they could maybe fund issue two fully and then basically use it as like a pre-order form.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, you raised, 5 grand and you got to keep another 800. Well, maybe most of issue two is now done. And now you need only $300 for issue two. And you basically have more money to keep going.
Yeah.
But I digress.
That's the other thing. Yeah. So like, yeah, I don't need to set my funding goal at 5 grand. I can set it lower now. So yeah, there's all kinds of benefit to having a lower platform fee. And, hopefully people start seeing what those benefits are. If the platform fee doesn't matter to you, and if freedom of speech doesn't matter to you, and features that are more geared towards comic creators and game developers and geeks don't matter to you, then stay where you're at. It's fine. The you know what, capitalism, competition breeds excellence. That's my opinion. And
And
so
then
yeah, I think the more options, the better for all of us.
and then I want to touch one more thing that I think most people actually don't know that just came out on Kickstarter. Actually, it's a very interesting feature where there's a block feature that has now hit on Kickstarter, so you can actually block people who have backed your campaign. And I think the theory of it is that you might have somebody who is a $3,000 pledge who's trying to mess up your campaign and jack it up so that it falls back down. And so a stretch goal gets locked or unlocked. And I've seen that happen, and it kind of sucks when it's a really good stretch goal that's been unlocked, then it gets relocked, then it gets unlocked. But I'm also thinking about it where, since there's so much drama in comics, what happens if I like somebody's book, but they don't like me, and I don't like them, but I like their book? And it becomes
Right.
an issue, I think, on that platform is that if you block me, but I want to spend money, but I don't want to talk to you, I mean, is that really a good thing for that platform? And even how you deal with that, because that's an issue because you don't want somebody pledging $1,000 pledge just to back out of it 2 days later.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that idea. Uh, personally, I'm not I'm not thrilled by that probability at all. But that's just me. Yeah, I don't want people backing out of these big pledges, but if they're a customer, they should be able to back. They should be able to back out of it if they don't want it. I mean, the problem comes in with Kickstarter's culture. At that point, it's not really a problem. It's not really a problem of the individual. It's the problem of the culture around it. I don't like using Kickstarter because I always have people drop pledges at the end. And some people will back really exorbitantly high things like original art, and then they'll completely back out at the end or close to the end when I don't have time to try to sell that now. So that is a Kickstarter's culture problem. That because it's just part of what it is. It's part of the learned behavior over there. So they have to do a better job of trying to fix that, I think. I don't know that. I mean, maybe that is the right way to do it, the way they want to do it. I don't know. I mean, it's not my business. My business is fund my comic. It's not how we're planning to do things like that. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to tell somebody how to run their business. Believe me, plenty of people have tried to tell me how to run mine, and I'm doing just fine. I'm just doing just fine. I don't really think that I should be telling people how to run their business unless I am being paid to do so.
Right.
And the second somebody wants to pay me to tell me how to run their business, I'm all ears. So if you want me to tell you how to run your business, everybody who's watching, feel free to shoot me an email at any given point. I'll be more than happy to take your money and tell you how to fix your problems.
Bingo.
You don't have to listen to anything I say, but I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
But if you don't pay me, I'm going to just be quiet. Um, because I don't think it's a good idea to tell people how to run their business unless they ask. Um, but enough about that. We've been speaking for an hour, and I do want to give you a chance to self-promote. I know you got a bunch of stuff. I think you got something coming out this Saturday, maybe. I think you might have a cover of some sort dropping. Maybe I ruined something. I don't know.
Do I have a cover dropping on Saturday?
I thought you had some coming out for Free Comic Book Day.
No, I don't think so.
Or
Maybe
maybe
I
I got.
do. Maybe I do. I don't think I do. I
I
don't
thought
think
it was like
someone's
a.
hired me to do a cover for that, anything like that.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of something else. But I thought you had something coming out for Free Comic Book Day. But I digress right there. Um, but I know you do have a bunch of stuff going on with Hybrid still, and
I do.
I think you obviously you got the comic stuff, and I think the stories. Did the story wrap up in the 9 issues, or did that arc wrap up? Because it was a killing field, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, the Killing Field, that arc wrapped up. We do have a new arc getting ready to start. Currently, the campaigns are closed so that we can focus on fulfillment. When will you be able to get those books again? We'll decide later. Yeah, we haven't decided yet exactly when. We're going to make those available to the masses again. Should have got involved earlier.
So actually, that's interesting. So I am a big proponent, and this sounds mean, right? But having windows where things are open and having windows when things are closed,
Yeah.
because it's like live sports, right? So it's cool where I could watch. I'm a big anime fan. I could watch anime at any given time. So it premieres, and then it's in Crunchyroll's library, pretty much indefinitely. And so I don't have to watch it at 6 in the morning. I could watch it at 9 in the morning when I wake up on my Sunday, which is nice. But when a Kickstarter happens, or an Indiegogo happens, or Fund My Comic happens, or wherever else happens, there's a time frame to buy it. And then if it's still always open, it's not present. It's not I guess, need for me to back it then. But
Oh, there's certainly not. Yeah.
if it's only available on the campaign or any Kickstarters that you're running in the future or any other crowdfunding you're running in the future, then yeah, then it becomes an event, especially if you're running only 2 or 3 a year.
Yeah.
So what is that like for you? Because it actually sort of, I guess, forces somebody
I
to
I
do
used to
something.
always make everything available all the time. Um, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. Because I've got so much going on, I can't always be running a campaign, or having something that I do have things that are available on my website, floppies and stuff like that. But with this RPG that we did, I've got to figure out a better way to sell it. That did not go as I had hoped or anticipated. And so I've got to figure out what I need to do to be able to sell better, especially when it comes to an RPG. Because I clearly don't know what I'm doing. If I knew what I was
You're
doing,
gonna
I would
fail
have sold
upward.
better.
You're failing upward. You're gonna
Yeah,
fail
I mean,
upward.
but that's the thing. Yeah, I'm not going to give up. I mean, but the only way to go is up, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're gonna go up from here. And pardon me, hold on. This flu, it's got a really bad cough. But yeah, we regroup, and so the RPG is not gonna be available again to purchase until we've made a couple adjustments. Same way with the Killing Field trade paperback. People that got it will get it, and then you'll have to wait for the next go round. And we may add it on another campaign somewhere, or we'll see. We'll see.
Power's in your hands.
The
And
power
only
is
your
in my
hands
hands,
alone.
and I'm okay with that. I really like for the power being in my hands. Just saying.
Oh my God, just so many things I could say. So many things I could say to that. And then 90% of what I would like to say is so vastly inappropriate. But I'm just gonna hold my tongue. 'Cause I would like to be as appropriate as I can be on my show. Um, but I digress right there. I digress. It would come out a little too mean, is all I'm gonna say. And,
That's all right.
and I'm gonna go with the golden rule today. Um, but we've been speaking, as I stated, for a while, and I do want to give you a chance to promote. Obviously, we were just speaking about hybrids, but where could people check out Fund My Comic? Obviously, get a glimpse of it, figure out how to
Pretty
buy
simple.
it.
Yeah, head over to fundmycomic.com. Piece of cake. Check that out. That is really what I want people to check out right now. Is that website? That's my primary focus of promotion right now. We got a lot of great campaigns on there. We just found out that Kelsey Shannon is going to be funding over there here very soon. We've got a great book called The Little Mermaid, which is kind of a parody book, but it's actually got like a pretty good and genuine story to it. That's going to be over there going live in few just a couple weeks. And so yeah, that's what we've got going over there. So definitely check out fundmycomic.com. And yeah, that's primarily that's the gist of it, my friend. That's what I want. That's what I'd hope for people to go check out.
Yeah, and obviously, where could people find you as well?
Oh, I'm over at lukestonestudios.com. So all of my pertinent links are there. You can find my Twitter account and things like that there. And I'm on Twitter probably more than I am Facebook for different reasons. I don't really care for Facebook too much anymore. So I don't spend much time there.
And then
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say it, and I'm gonna keep saying it. You have to support indie, and what that means is you have to back people's projects. I personally don't care what you back, whether it's on Kickstarter, crowdfunder, Indiegogo, Fund My
Just
Comic.
back something, right?
If you want comics and you want them to get made, you need to back them. If you're not interested in comics, I don't know what to say. But if you like something and you want to see it get made, I mean, you gotta support it. It's not that complicated, and that goes for anything, And it's extremely important. And obviously, there's a lot of different things that you could look out there. And if you're looking for something new, and I don't think I need to say it, but I'm gonna say it anyway, you could check out Fund My Comic, and who knows, maybe the project that you like is there that you're not seeing elsewhere. And you might just say, hey, cool, this is good, and now I want to read this book. So there you go. And I guess you never know what's going to be
Yeah,
on
there's
your
some
side.
stuff that's only going to be there.
There you go. There you go. So obviously, it's worth checking out if you like comics, is all I'm going to say. Obviously, you should go follow
Hmm.
Luke as well. I'm sure that, you're more than happy to be commissioned for things as well at some point, if you have availability. I know you did a good piece for Chris Brown for Welcome to
Yeah.
Slaughterville.
Oh yeah.
That was good. You're welcome for that, by the way. You're welcome for that. Um,
I do appreciate
happy,
it. Yeah.
happy, happy to introduce you. That's what I'm here for. Happy to hook people up. Always thrilled to. Because when people need artwork and people need a writer, happy to introduce people when they need to be introduced. But I digress right there. Yeah, so since we got Sport Indie, and then I'm just going to promote myself really quickly. Obviously, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I am Pop Anime Comics on YouTube. So please subscribe on YouTube. It means a lot to me when people subscribe on YouTube. I like when actually people subscribe. I am trying to get to 510 subscribers by the end of May. I am at 509. I can't break it. I can't break that number, and it's killing me, guys. But I really appreciate when people subscribe there, check out what I do, watch my content. I guarantee you there is an interview for you there. I have almost 500 interviews up there. So there is something for everybody on my channel. So that's something to keep in the back of everybody's head, as well as I am independent media. So I buy me a coffee. I appreciate when people do that and they want to support independent media. If people would like to run ads on my show, my ad rates are up there as well, and all that fun stuff. And yeah, I just appreciate all of that. But more importantly, really engage with me, share this out, check me out on social media because it does make a huge difference. And that's what's really important to me at the moment. Um, but beyond that, I have nothing else. And so I'm going to give you the final word.
Oh yeah. Remember, guys, there's so many people out there tearing things down, and people want you to. They want you to keep your minds and your community separated from one another based on whatever thing they're telling you about. So just get out there, get to know people, open your mind up to and your heart up to different individuals, just to get to know people. Like find out for yourself if they're good people or if they're bad people. Everyone's tearing things down. Let's start building things up. We went through this phase where we had a lot of deconstructionism. People were deconstructing characters, deconstructing stories. They started deconstructing recipes for food. They started deconstructing their faith. I mean, but no one's reconstructing anything. So let's make a new phase of life where we go out there and we try to reconstruct. We try to build things back up. and maybe even try to leave things better than we found it. Leave the wood pile higher than we find it. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to try to make somebody's life a little bit better today. It might take us swallowing our pride a little bit, but I think in the end that's ultimately worth it. So get out there and leave the wood pile higher than you found it. And that's all I got to say.
I don't think I could have said that any better myself. And that is a